All right, welcome to another More Than Walking video podcast discussion, where we seek to encourage dialogue on a variety of topics with the unique perspectives of people with spinal cord injuries and other disabilities. It is our goal for these conversations to make us think critically and for us to all leave with a newfound sense of belonging in a world where we have more things in common than we do different. I'm your host, Corey Feasley. I am a C4, C5 quadriplegic, and I sustained my injury due to a diving accident back on June 12th, 2005. So coming up, it'll be 18 years for my anniversary. I'm just happy to be here with everybody. And, you know, before we get to introductions for everybody, I just want to take the time out to thank, Jay, AKA mini producer Emmanuel, who is a music producer. He's a content creator. He's based in Ball Ground, Georgia. And despite being hard of hearing and living with a rare brittle bone condition known as osteogenesis imperfecta type 3 and autism, Jay has dedicated his career to breaking barriers and representing young professionals with disabilities in the music and industry. He's had the opportunity to collaborate with top companies like Coca-Cola and Snapchat, and he's produced songs for both independent and label artists like Young Blue, Fred the Godson, Boldy James, DJ Luke Nasty, and many others. So I wanted to just make sure I introduced him properly and snag that information from his website. And he's going to be able to give us not only feedback to the questions, but also maybe some of the challenges and things that he faced as a person with disabilities inside of, the music industry, which is a form of media. So with that being said, Jonathan, I'll let you kick it off, introduce yourself, tell us where you calling in from in your injury.
Awesome. So hey everyone, Jonathan Singworth calling in from Connecticut, C7 complete since 2006 when I fell off a cliff in India, and happy to be here.
Well, thank you, Tahira.
C4, C5 incomplete since 2007 in a roller derby accident in Chicago. Happy to be here.
Awesome. Thank you. Brandon.
I'm Brandon Patterson. I'm outside of Colorado Springs, Colorado. I am a C6, C7 complete. I was in a rollover accident, sneaking up actually in a week and a half, I guess it is. On the 17th will be my 6-year anniversary. And I am happy to be here, and thank you all.
Thank you. Harley.
I'm Harley. I am a C7 incomplete quadriplegic due to a diving accident on my 19th birthday in 1994. And next year is my 29th anniversary of life. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. Jason.
Yes, my name's Jason Thurston. I live in the northernmost corner of New York State. I'm a C6 quadriplegic due to a diving accident in 2004. So I'm coming up on 19 years. I love the outdoors and helping people get outside, and I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. Alexia.
I'm Alexia Bookums. I live in Farmington, Connecticut. And 28 years ago, a tree fell on our car, driving home from an indoor soccer game on a windy evening in February. And my husband and 6-year-old son in the back seat were killed instantly. I sustained a spinal cord injury and was in a coma for 40 days. And my 8-year-old son next to me was in a coma for about a week. My 10-year-old daughter was next to him, and her leg was severely injured, but she went on to be in the track team, the cross-country team, and the diving team in high school. And she's currently working as a park ranger in the Adirondacks for the summer, and she's really looking forward to that. In the wintertime, she spends as much time as she can in New Zealand and on Antarctica. She really likes it where it's cold. For the life of me, I can't understand that, but she likes it cold. The colder, the better.
Nice. Thank you for being able to join us. Mark Riffle.
Hey, y'all. I'm a C7 quad, live in South Carolina. I've been using a wheelchair for 37 years.
Awesome. Nice. Yvonne?
Hi, everyone. Sorry, I'm Yvonne. I am from Nigeria and I've been using a wheelchair for the past 15 years. Yes, yes, 15 years. And nice to be here.
Nice. Thank you for chiming in. And Jay.
Hello, my name is Jay. Uh, as it was mentioned in my bio, I have osteogenesis imperfecta, autism, and I'm hard of hearing. And I've been in a chair my whole life. And I'm also a little person. I'm just happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for those introductions. And I'm very glad to be spending my evening with everyone here. I don't believe I missed anybody, but we're going to jump right into tonight's discussion. So what are we really like talking about today, right? We're talking about something that I think we can all relate to, and that's seeing yourself in society's mirror. What does that exactly mean? And we're going to flesh out some of our thoughts, opinions, experiences, and especially not only how we're portrayed in society's mirror, but also how we can be portrayed in the media, because the media is like a direct reflection of what's happening and what's occurring in our everyday lives. So after surviving a spinal cord injury or living with a disability, the world as you knew it or as you've been dealing with sometimes can feel and become shattered. And as you struggle meticulously to reassemble each shard, you quickly realize that the distorted image looking back at you doesn't accurately reflect the person you were, or more importantly, the person you've become. Whether in the context of film, fashion, music, business, science, government, or any other industry, it may be hard to imagine someone just like you with a disability appearing and thriving in those types of settings. True, we may be underrepresented in many categories, and disability stigmas still limit equal opportunities and inclusiveness. However, let's dive deep through discussion and immerse ourselves in the reflection pool of life and question what we see and think when asking, mirror, mirror, who is the fairest of them all? I kind of like to think that I am, but that's just besides the point. So as I was like preparing and thinking about this discussion topic, I couldn't help but see and think about how often do I see people like me with a disability, or maybe someone who's blind, someone with some type of physical disability that's not doing a commercial, maybe for a hospital, or some type of insurance, but just in a regular setting, maybe on a TV show, et cetera. And according to GLAAD, 1.8% of reoccurring TV shows have somebody with a disability, and that is the lowest percentage amongst any type of evaluation that's been done when it comes down to how we're looked at in the media, right? And then I thought about, that's just merely television representation. What about our general lives, making a livelihood? Then I thought about things like for some of us who are old enough to remember this movie called Mask, which was about a young man named Rocky Dennis, and he had physical deformities, right? And although Rocky passed away as a teenager when they remade the movie in the 80s, his mother was like, she didn't want the movie to focus on her so much as she wanted the movie to focus on her son. And one of the sad things, the movie won an Academy, but it wasn't necessarily because of its portrayal or giving insight and information on Rocky's condition, but it was more because of how well the makeup was done. And so I think that's a bit sad, and I think that we need to be looked at just like everybody else in society, with a sense of normalcy. So it brings me to question one. With low visibility in different media outlets, many in the SCI community and other disabled communities don't get a chance to see others that are going through the same situations. The lack of public representation can negatively affect the next generation of spinal cord injured people. As a wheelchair user, is disability representation important to you? And how can we be more incorporated into society as technology advances? Brandon, I'll let you take that.
That's a really good one. I definitely don't see enough like spinal cord injury people, I guess, in movies and stuff. And even when there is, like, one of my favorite movies is The Upside. You know what I mean? But they couldn't even get somebody with a real spinal cord injury to play it. You know what I mean? Like, don't get me wrong, Bryan Cranston like really knocked it out of the box. I think he did. He really portrayed a high quad very, very well. But there's thousands of people that they could have got that, you know, or that really lives our life, you know what I mean, in that position, you know. So I don't think there's enough representation out there, you know, and what representation is, it's almost like a false positive, you know what I mean? Like there, what is portrayed makes a lot of it out to be kind of like rainbows and candies, and I ain't never had one of those days in the 6 years I've been in a wheelchair yet. So I'm waiting for those days still to like, when's that gonna happen for me? But like in the media too, especially like we just got a congressman in Colorado that's in a wheelchair, and which is really kind of impressive because like when they did his inauguration, if he was, the stage was not set up for somebody in a wheelchair, and just to prove a point, this guy literally drug himself out of his chair and crawled up the stairs and put himself in a chair and in front of everybody, cameras and all. Like, yeah, this isn't gonna fly, people. You know, this, we're gonna be having some change. So I'm kind of impressed and to see where he can take things.
Awesome. Tahira.
Hey, you guys, I'm back. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I was just looking up something because I had seen a show about 10 years ago, and I had to look it up to see what it was called. It was with DJ Qualls, the actor, and he played in a show called Legit. I finally looked it up. He was paralyzed. He was a high level, paralyzed from the chest down in a motorized wheelchair. I could hardly believe it because I'd been paralyzed for a few years at the time when I turned it on, and it was just hilarious. But of course I didn't keep up with it. But you know, I don't know how many people have it, but that container that people use when you don't urinate on your own and you have to empty the catheter, and his buddy had it like sitting next to a pizza box. And this woman comes over and she's like, "What is that?" She's like, "You are disgusting." Why? Because her daughter was there. I think she had been married to the friend. She's like, "Why is that sitting up there?" And I just thought it was hilarious. And I don't know how long it lasted, but I feel bad because I'd always wanted to write something to the actor, because I find if I write, occasionally people get back to me if I'm writing something regarding something they've done regarding paralysis. They can be pretty responsive, but I never did. But I was wondering if it looks like Brandon saw it, but I don't know if anybody else did.
All right.
But that and Upside is pretty much the ones I've seen. So
I understand that. Just want to get Mark in there real quick. Mark, is disability representation important to you?
Yes, it's important to me, and it made me remember there was a movie, a Tom Cruise movie, Born on the 4th of July, and he played a disabled Vietnam vet in a chair. And this came out, I don't know, a year or two after I got hurt, and I was back at college and trying to get my life restarted and get my game on and meet some ladies. And then a stupid movie comes out and he's impotent in the movie. And I'm like, great, you know, this is hard enough. And now y'all are reinforcing this stereotype. Damn, come on, Tom. But he wasn't quite a Top Gun then, but yeah. So that made life even a little bit harder, because I can actually remember one or two people coming up to me in a bar and saying, "Hey, I saw that movie, you know, or did you like that for you?" And it's like, damn, y'all. But hopefully,
those are all good examples. I mean, you know, people see one movie sometimes, they think that, you know, they know it all, or that they, you know, maybe they are open to a little bit more empathy. I wanted to get to Harley about it.
For me, I agree with what everybody's saying. You know, there's not enough representation out there for true persons with disabilities. I myself was starting a modeling career when I had my accident. And after my accident, the people that were going to hire me actually fired me. I never got the job because I was now considered too high maintenance. So I understand firsthand the hardships of trying to be a person with a disability, having a career in modeling and acting and stuff, because it's too difficult to take too much time to assist the person in getting dressed, getting their makeup on. Because at the time of my accident, I didn't have hardly any use of my hands. So it took me longer to get dressed. It took me longer to do my makeup. And I lost everything. I lost my entire career because of it becoming a quadriplegic.
Wow.
And now, 29 years later, I've seen the TV show based on 4 ladies called Push Girls, done by Angela Rockwood, I believe is her last name, and Auntie Angel, who just recently passed away, who was an amazing wheelchair dancer. So I've seen a little bit, but like everybody says, there's just little bits here, little bits there. I mean, and then you get movies like Me Before You and The Upside or 4th of July, and they have able-bodied people portraying people in wheelchairs. And it's like, yeah, great portrayal, but, we can do better because we live it.
You know what? And I'm happy you brought that point. I'm going to shift the question over to Jay. You talked about, a modeling career. This question was brought in part due to the comments of a particular conservative podcast host about like the models who were modeling a particular brand, which gave access to women with, in terms of undergarments and whatnot. And she couldn't understand about inclusivity and why that was important to see, women beautiful regardless of their disability or not, wearing something that helped them prepare and get ready and get dressed. It was nice to see that. So I want to kind of pivot that to Jay. I know up here in CT and all over the country, see a lot of St. Jude commercials, right? And a lot of the children in the St. Jude commercials happen to have the same osteogenesis imperfecta as you. Have you ever looked at that and said, that's one light that we're in, but there's such a bigger community that represents us. We're not just here, trying to sponsor a hospital.
It's so interesting that you bring up that commercial because so many people have thought I'm in that commercial, and I'm not in the commercial. I don't even know who they compare me to in the commercial. I've still been trying to find out who this person is that is my double in the specific St. Jude commercial, which goes back to disability representation, right? For me, especially doing content and being on social media, I'm always confused with the same 3 people, which always tells me that we need more people out there, representing us, because to be confused with the same people all the time it's hard because you're trying to build up your own thing and you're attached to people either A, you don't know, or 2, you're I don't even look like that person. And so disability representation is definitely important to me, and something I wanted to mention, Harley, about your modeling career. I don't know if you've heard about this company called Gamut Management. That's who it's an agency that I just signed up with, and they're a non-exclusive agency. They represent models and actors and all that stuff with disabilities, so it could be something for you to look into. And there's that company, and also ZBD Talent as well. There's another one that is focused on representing people with disabilities and other various people. So I just wanted to put out there, never too late to do it.
Cool.
But it goes back to that representation and what everybody's been speaking on, that a lot of these movies, I think the first movie I saw of disability representation of someone that was able-bodied is Forrest Gump and Jack. The movie Jack with Robin Williams, representing the condition progeria and things like that. So that was my first disability representation. But as far as, even The Good Doctor with autism, and even though he's not really autistic. So there is that liability that I feel like everyone's kind of mentioned so far, that companies seem to think are going to come with using actual disabled people. However, I think it's important for disabled people to be able to accurately represent their experiences, because if you're an able-bodied person that's using a wheelchair, you can leave it. This is our life. We don't get to just turn it on and off. You know what I mean? So I do think it's important.
Very true. Yvonne, how about you?
Well, representation for spinal cord injured people really matters a lot. I would say in America, you guys over there have tried, and I could see a bit of, they're doing it. It's a bit, you guys over there are a bit represented. Yes, that's what I'm trying to say. But here in Africa is something that we are really struggling and still trying to make it possible. And it's just like here it's impossible because once you have a spinal cord injury, here over here you're just looked at like you can't just do anything again. So it's something we're still fighting for. And it really matters because it helps in changing stereotypes and it helps in increasing awareness and advocating for our rights and needs. And I hope that one day we're able to get there here in Africa and just make it possible. Because right here in Africa, if a kid sees you in a wheelchair, they actually get scared because people in wheelchairs mostly don't go out. They're always indoors. And if someone goes out, someone who uses a wheelchair or a spinal cord injured person goes out, it also helps other people with spinal cord injury. It motivates them and gives them hope. And you could know that if somebody that has gone through or been through this thing you're going through becomes a better person or is doing well, you could still be a better person or do well. But here we don't have that luxury of helping each other and showing people that you can still be something after a spinal cord injury. But that's something we're fighting and advocating for. And we hope that it gets better in Africa and representation becomes a norm.
Definitely. And John, I think you could
Yeah.
speak a lot to this, especially with your work with bringing wheelchair rugby over to India, people seeing what is actually possible when others are represented in a different light.
Yeah, and Yvonne, thank you so much for joining. It's everyone. It's 1 a.m. where she is, so really thank you so much for joining. But yeah, just the experience of going outside. Like when I was injured in India and I came back year after year, just me rolling outside in the marketplace and just everyone paying attention because it's just something you don't see. It really felt like just rolling down the street was an act of rebellion or was like an act of advocacy in and of itself, which felt really good. But the backside of that is like it's so surprising because it just doesn't happen. But I think that also pushes to just the very basics. How can we better represent our communities? By going outside. It doesn't have to be so complicated. Just helping each other get outside. But then I also wanted to speak to like the technology, like how as technology advances can we be more incorporated into society. There's a show, I think it's Netflix or Prime Video, called Peripheral. Anyone seen that? Well, basically, people somehow get to the future in some kind of virtual reality mechanism. And if we think about Facebook and the metaverse, whatever that's going to be, there's going to be a temptation, I think, for the disabled community to be approached and say, hey, look, you can live your able-bodied life in this virtual world. You can leave your wheelchair behind. The kind of theme that we see in movies like Avatar and other things where the wheelchair user is there, it's really cool. But, there's some plot twist that allows them to kind of live a fuller life without the chair. And so just kind of thinking about as we interact in the digital world, do we bring our disability with us? And is that something that we leave behind? And just thinking about the importance of really carrying our whole selves, no matter what our limitations, and it's our whole self, and we should embrace it.
Awesome. Jason.
Yeah, I want to play devil's advocate for a few minutes and talk about the people who have portrayed people with spinal cord injuries. Now, one of my favorites is He Won't Get Far on Foot, and that's about the cartoonist in San Francisco. Joaquin Phoenix played the guy. But when they get somebody to play an airplane pilot, they don't get a real airplane pilot. I just feel like an actor is an actor, and if a person in a wheelchair isn't an actor, then it's difficult to put them in that position. And that's all I'm going to say about that. But one of my favorites was Murderball. When I was first injured, that had just come out. And so to see that movie, it was really inspiring to see those guys talk about how they've broken the mold. And I guess in terms of other representations, Peter Dinklage comes to mind too, and the fact that in the Game of Thrones, of course, he played a dwarf, but I've seen him in other movies where they don't even recognize that he's a little person and he's just a regular actor, and they just go on about it, which I think is great. So that's my 2 cents. Plus, I think in this day and age, we have an opportunity because there's so many different media outlets to let our own voice be heard. And I think that this is one example of it. And I think that Jonathan definitely creates a lot more avenues for that to happen.
That's awesome. Yeah, you're right. And just, before I get to Alexia about it, like part of, not only like when she made the conservative commentator made that comment, the first thing I did, instead of like demonize it, I wanted to hear what people in the wheelchair community had to say about seeing other people in their underwear who happen to be in wheelchairs. And the comment section surprised me because not everybody really cared. Some people are like, I don't need to see that. Like, of course I wear underwear. What do you think? You know what I mean? So it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be this way to be inclusive. Just kind of treat me normal like everybody else. You know what I mean? If you are casted as a barista in a coffee shop and you happen to have Down syndrome, you just deliver the coffee like anybody else. You don't have to go, well, that person is overcoming the challenges of life and good job, they have a job. Like, no, you're just doing what any normal other person would do. To hear
I just wanted to say that's funny. Oh, also, but I wanted to say, I think the first one I ever saw, if anybody remembers, Pulp Fiction, and there's just a black guy in a motorized chair who crosses the street. And this is 20 years before my injury, and I was stunned. There was just something about, I never forgot that. There was, I think in the 90s in Chicago, I don't think I ever saw anyone in a motorized wheelchair roll down the street. You just didn't see it. And I'm a freak here in Oklahoma City because I go everywhere on the bus. I live across the street from the terminal downtown, and I just go anywhere. And a lot of people say hi, though. But some people just pretend they don't see me, too. And it was probably like me when I saw Pulp Fiction, and I was like, my word. I mean, and I still think of that sometimes, like, the guy in the motorized and I just think it's funny that they had an extra in a motorized wheelchair. And
but was he an extra, or was he an actor, and the only acting job he could get was here, you in the power wheelchair across the street?
Well, also, with those when they look for extras, it's a free-for-all. It is a freak show. When people show up to be an extra in something, people are like, well, nobody looks like me. Maybe they'll have me as an extra. So I don't know if he was actually an actor or not. No, I don't know.
No, but to Jason's point, I think it's important to counterbalance that, which is there are a lot of wheelchair actors, and the problem is that they're not chosen for these roles. But even more than that, it's the roles themselves often. If you're portraying the life of someone, maybe that's a different thing. But, as we mentioned, the roles that we're talking about, more often than not, it's someone in a wheelchair who doesn't want to be in the chair, who's not living like a fully wheelchair user life. So even just the character itself has problems. But there are wheelchair user actors, and perhaps if there weren't income limits on Medicaid or on government benefits or whatnot, more of us could pursue that career.
I think that's true. Just gonna, that's very true. Mark, I just want to get your input. As we're on the subject of representation, okay, right? So we can't all necessarily do everything in every type of setting, right? We can't perform on the tightrope, or we can't juggle per se. What is a tangible way of seeing ourselves in society's mirror? Like, what's something practical?
For myself, I've done lots of public speaking. 9 months after my accident, I started talking about water safety. Since I had a diving accident, I actually signed up with the Army Corps of Engineers, and I would talk to an average of 5,000 students every spring for 3 months. And then because of my tenacity, I was like, well, hey, what about, this, or what about that? And so because of me, they started doing the county. Army Corps of Engineers already did the county fairs, but they included me into the county fair. So I'd work the county fair for 5 days. And then we started doing health fairs. And then they included me in doing the campfire, the campfire programs up at the campground. So I believe that we can, if we push ourselves and we advocate, and not aggressively, but very assertively, and really let people know that, you know what, you're not going to look me over just because I'm sitting in a chair.
Mark, what do you think is a tangible way of being recognized that we're all kind of going through the same shared experience of life?
I've always tried to, expand my horizons as much as possible, just by, people say, well, you can't drive, or you can't really work, or you can't go to these places, you can't pursue these activities. And that's almost daring me to be able to do it again, or to try to do it. And so I've always pushed myself to try to be out there, and not so much to be a role model, but I did kind of look at it as, if I show that people are really interested in these kinds of things, or being at these places, or pursuing these activities, then as more of these opportunities come open, then they'll take that into consideration. They'll say, oh, well, maybe we do need a ramp here, or, oh, maybe we do need to make this accessible, or maybe we do need to, be more inclusive with our invitation list when it comes to whatever activity might be. That's just the way I've always tried to do it. So.
I like that approach.
I've had a strange experience over the past probably year and a half. I stopped dyeing my hair. So I used to have brown hair all my life. And now every time I look at myself in the mirror, I think, who is that person? I find that more strange than seeing myself in a wheelchair, seeing myself with different color hair.
So you just basically kind of embracing things as you are.
Yeah.
There's just one step. Just why try to dye it and turn back the clock? Just I am who I am.
And I never imagined that I would be so surprised at who I saw in the mirror. But it's more striking to me than seeing pictures of myself in a wheelchair, like at family gatherings or something. I don't even notice it there, but I notice my hair.
Awesome.
Because that was something I could change. Maybe that was it. I can't change the fact that I'm paralyzed, but I could change the fact that I was gray.
Wow. I can understand that. Jay, how about you? Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to say also, as far as like dyeing my hair, I'm also starting to embrace things that are cheaper. So, and things like anything that has to be done at the salon becomes quite expensive on a monthly basis. So just that.
Cool. Jay, how about you? Like, especially working in the music industry and, having to produce and make beats and things of that nature. Like what was your experience like trying to show that, hey, look, I can keep up and do the same things that anybody else who's on their feet?
I think something that I have gone through is being seen as more than just someone that inspires people. Like, if I inspire you, then that's great. But I always joke that, like, I could be a terrible person. I'm not, however, I could be, and so there's that, like, getting past that stereotype of being inspirational and, people only wanting to hear you if you're, motivating, like, I can do it, you can do it too. Like, sometimes I don't want to get out of bed in the morning. I don't always feel like I'm necessarily ready to go on a podium and be like, I'm here to, represent. So I had to get people to really see me for my work, which is why when I even first started getting on social media, like, I didn't show my face because I didn't want people to just associate me being in a chair and then not really paying attention to like what I had to offer. And then one of my friends was like, man, you should start making videos and stuff. And I was a little hesitant. And once I started doing it, I mean, I got more comfortable. However, my biggest thing was always just to make sure that people like actually like my stuff for what I like, they actually liked it, and not just because they felt bad for me or, they wanted the diversity token and all these types of things. So that's just something I've had to navigate through. But I mean, for me, I don't ever feel like I'm trying to prove anything to anyone. I'm just living my life. And fortunately, I've been able to do a lot of incredible things. And I'm grateful with that I'm able to represent in some, capacity. But I really just go with like, I'm living my life, I'm experiencing it. And this is all I know. I've always been disabled, so I don't know anything different. I don't know what that looks like. So I've just had to navigate and adapt. And adapting is a huge thing. So when it comes to able-bodied counterparts and how they can incorporate us, I mean, I think it's just incorporating us, not anything too special. Yeah, in regards to like just treating us as humans, because that's what we are at the end of the day with, obviously with disabilities and stuff like that. But yeah, that's how I've navigated in the music industry, now acting and other areas. So yeah.
It's pretty cool. I would say briefly, just as an artist myself, like I try not to make punchlines or anything about paralysis because I remember rapping for somebody and because I rap for him in person, he was like, "Man, you nicer than half of these cats out here and they walking." I'm like, in my head, I'm like, that has nothing to do with
Yeah,
anything.
your skill level. Yeah.
Yeah, my skill level has absolutely nothing to do with what I'm physically, appear. But it's interesting. Like you took the same route. Like you didn't want to like kind of show your face because you wanted, your skill set to speak for you. I just want to talk to Yvonne real quick about it. And coming from a different culture, like in Africa, how do you think African society can tangibly recognize people in our community as people going through the same experience as everyone else?
Oh, you said something that just reminded me of what people always tell me here. Like everybody that sees me, they're always like, why would somebody this beautiful be on a wheelchair? Oh, such a waste of a human being. Like, how would you say such a thing to somebody? And it's just like normal. They just feel, yeah, this should not happen to you. And here in Africa, I'm a virtual assistant and I am very tech savvy, but a lot of people have never given me chances. When they see once you're in a wheelchair, they say, no, you can't do the job. And I've literally always gotten my clients on the internet freelancing. And when they don't even know you're in a wheelchair, they could allow you to do the job. But when they see you physically, nobody believes you can do it. So we have a lot of things. We can do things, but differently. And I just wish here in Africa we had the opportunities to just live the life we want and be given the opportunities other people are given as well. And there are many spinal cord injured people here that are very abled, like better than people walking because they are intelligent, but then we don't get the opportunities, and we hope that one day it gets better. So
Absolutely. Brandon, how about yourself?
So, like, for me personally, like, yeah, obviously I'll never juggle again. And I don't know, personally, the thought of somebody in our position on a tightrope that you mentioned, I just can't get that out of my head. I think that I'd pay extra money to see something like that. But, like, me personally, like, I may not have my body, but my mind is just as sharp as ever. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah, public speaking, I do a lot of peer mentoring stuff. I do a lot of rehabilitation counseling, working with especially people just starting down the road of a spinal cord injury, because it's like I said, that's something I know. You know what I mean? I may be relatively new in my injury, but I have a lot to offer somebody that's only been doing it for, less than a year or anything like that. And then I see a lot of us being able to do, especially since we have our minds, is educators, getting into, a teaching position, whatever subject is your forte or your passion, you know what I mean? That is something that we can absolutely offer and completely give back, that even somebody in a walking position couldn't do. You know what I mean? We have the gift of our mind, and pretty much everybody on here has gift of gab. So I think we can all do good on that part.
Awesome, awesome. John, I want to make sure that you had a chance to answer that question.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think, how do we, I love this question. Short of giving everyone spinal cord injury, how do we get them to recognize us as people who share the same experience? I think part of it is, when we are able to represent not just ourselves, but represent our able-bodied counterparts. Like when we get to the point where we're not just fighting for disability rights, but we are fighting for our neighbors' rights. When I went to India and made my documentary "More Than Walking," which is the origin story of the organization, I interviewed my friend Navin Gulia, who's been a paraplegic, military veteran for many, many years, and he started a nonprofit to help street children. Kids who just were the children of day workers, essentially our construction workers, who live on the construction site and have their whole families there and their kids during the day. They don't go to school. They go out into the street and they beg for food for their parents, and you see them all over the place in India. And like that's his full-time work now as a result of his injury. And like he's leading this foundation, and it's not a disability foundation. It's like humans need help foundation. And I love that idea. So like if we can get, see our prospects of not just SCI awareness or not just disability awareness, but like, hey man, the planet's on fire. Like that affects us too. The more we can represent others, I think the more we can help others understand that we're just the same.
Yeah, no, you make a interesting point. This question was really brought on. I was reading about Mattel and their efforts to be inclusive, and and the ladies can attest to this. Some of you guys may have grew up playing with Barbies, and there's only one type of Barbie. Blonde-haired, blue-eyed, slender, and in a permanent position to wear high heels. But of recent times, Mattel has changed a lot. There's a Ken doll with vitiligo, and there's a Barbie in the wheelchair. And in October, they're going to be releasing a Barbie with Down syndrome. So the effort to have an everyday toy that many children, many people who are parents of children with Down syndrome and grew up with Down syndrome, they can see that reflected in something that can be purchased by anybody. It could be, your little brother has it, you may not have it, but that shared experience that everybody is interconnected, because we all will encounter somebody with a disability one way or the other. And I love that segment in the More Than Walking documentary where, he's driving around in his car and he's helping other kids out, you know what I mean? Because they are all a part of what makes our little world go round. John, I'm gonna shoot to you about this question. And then after this, to Hira. So people with disabilities throughout history have often been typecasted, and we're seen either as inspiring individuals, like Jay said, overcoming seemingly insurmountable odds, or as villains like Long John Silver, who's an amputee pirate in Treasure Island. More often than not, we are not seen as just ordinary citizens navigating through the same terrain as everyone else. In your opinion, is this typecast imagery detrimental to the disabled community? If you could be casted in a movie role, how do you see yourself? John, and it's Hero after.
So I want to be an action hero. Like you guys know John Wick, the
Yes.
John Wick series. Okay, so it's just like scene after scene, bullets flying. There's so many bodies dropping, like per minute in those films. Anyway, I wanna see a paraplegic strapped with like machine guns bursting through the doors, killing the bad guys, hopping into a helicopter, going down the outside of a skyscraper, through flames. It's
funny.
It's not unrealistic. I mean, it's like our modern day action heroes are not realistic if they're able-bodied anyways. No one could survive those things. So why not put them in a chair too?
And do you think it's dangerous to be only looked at in one light?
I mean, yeah, because the danger is that you're not making interesting characters. Interesting characters are complex. They're not just good. They're not just bad. They're a combination of the two. They're relatable like us. And so we need characters who are bigger than life, because that's how we want to live our lives. Like that's how we want to see ourselves. I want to be able to bust through the door and blow up the plane and save the day. Okay, blowing up planes is not good. That's a bad example. No. But you get my idea.
Yes, absolutely.
You understand.
Absolutely. Harley, how about yourself?
Goodness. Well, X-Men, Xavier, he's he's inspirational to me because he helps those around him just by his mind. And for me, if I was in a movie, I'd want to do what I already have been doing, only to a greater extent. And that's going into a courtroom and winning a case for somebody. I've been doing father's rights advocacy for 5 years. And so it feels good to be working with these people, and they don't see me as a person in a wheelchair doing an extraordinary thing. Oh my gosh, I can do all this. They see me as their advocate and someone who helps them and someone who understands them. The fact that I can make a 82-page case in 48 hours, being able to type it all as a quadriplegic, they don't see it as, oh my gosh, you're able to type that with minimal use of your hands. They're like, oh my gosh, thank you for being able to do this for me. They don't bring up my disability. They don't bring up my inabilities or limitations. And so for me, in a movie, I'd want to be in a criminal attorney, like in the TV show Law and Order, where I could just yell at somebody.
You drive them crazy like Vincent D'Onofrio.
Yes.
That'd be cool. Mark, how about yourself?
Well, initially I was thinking about that action hero thing because when I was first hurt, I had hollow armrest on my chair and I could shoot bottle rockets out of it, which totally impressed my littlest brother at the time. And because he was only about 7 and he was still dealing with, his big brother comes home in a wheelchair. And so when he saw me shooting bottle rockets, he's like, oh, hell yeah, this is going to be all right. We're good. So
that's pretty cool, though.
Excellent.
Hey, Tara.
Yeah. Cast in a movie role. That's a tough one. It's nice to be shown as a like a physically able person the way that I was before my injury. But now I'm just physically so weak.
Yeah.
And even the way, like when I speak at I go to the Unitarian Church, in my, the way I have to pause when I speak is like off because I just have to pause when I need more air. I can't wait till the next comma. It's going to take too long. So the idea of like playing someone who's like a strong, I think you can be, I try to be strong in my words, but I can't be physically forceful anymore. I just don't have the oxygen or the upper body for it anymore. The way that I used to be before my injury is just incredible to me now. Or when I hear someone really yell like obnoxiously, I'm like, boy, I wish I could still do that. Like I just physically can't do it. Occasionally, I've had my run-ins with people and I thought someone was being condescending to me. And I said, I know how to read. It's a requirement for law school. And it was just something I could say in kind of a quiet voice. And it was enough. But so I guess I would like to play someone strong who's just strong in their words, I guess, because playing someone physically strong is really not possible anymore. So, but that would be nice.
That'd be cool. I tell you what, and Jay, I'm gonna shoot it to you. As an artist, and I'm a high level quad, like there are certain verses I rap extremely fast and whatnot. But people, you would never know. Like not that I struggle to breathe, but I had to work on increasing lung capacity due to it. So I understand exactly what you mean. And being a father of young boys, sometimes I time my spasm when I need to yell. So then all of that extra force on my abdomen, it sounds like booming, like the voice of God is like coming from the cloud. So if you can time your spasm with when you want to yell at somebody, I definitely would recommend it. Jay, how about yourself? What kind of role would you like to be cast, especially, working in the entertainment industry?
Definitely as someone who's extremely wealthy. And the reason I say that is because, a lot of times when people I've noticed like that speak to think about the disability community, it's like you can only be in one financial position, government assistance, certain type of housing. And so seeing someone that's disabled that's just got a lot of money, I feel like would, be something nice. I think that's what I strive for in my career. Not just to say, oh, I have a lot of money, but more to show that there's a different, there can be a different way. But it all depends on people's situations. And like I always talk about, I'm super privileged to do half of the things I can do. It would just be really nice to portray a very wealthy character for the good. I don't want to be doing something villainous or anything like that. And just to show a different perspective of like being disabled doesn't have to look one way, which is, to the question, like there's so many ways to look and be disabled and experience disability. And, since I come from a different perspective of I've always had these disabilities,
right.
I just would want to be a regular, like if I wasn't just a wealthy character, I just would want to be seen as a regular person that happens to be a chair, but I don't want that to be like my basis of like every line is me talking about my wheelchair or being short or anything like that. So
Cool.
Yeah, just experiencing life regularly and
Awesome.
wealthy, wealthy
Yes,
character.
definitely. Yvonne, how about yourself?
Oh, I think Yvonne had to drop it out.
Okay. Jason.
Yeah, I like Haley's point of playing someone who's very powerful as an advocate. I too have been an advocate before, and it's like when you're helping somebody, the fact that you're in a chair just kind of melts away in the grips of doing something really good for somebody else that has nothing to do with your current situation, and something that almost pays no attention to the daily rigmarole or focuses on how we do things differently.
That's pretty cool. Alexia and then Brandon.
I often think of myself, or would like to think of myself as, or other people as temporarily abled, that everyone's going to end up with less ability to do things. And as people are aging more, people are living longer lives, there are going to be more people that are going to need help. And the whole population is going to have a disability rather than all be temporarily abled.
Cool. So you wouldn't be a superhero. You're just like, you know what, listen, even if you're a superhero, you're going to end up getting old eventually.
Yeah. I mean, age is something you can't avoid. Thank goodness.
This is true. There's a lot of wisdom in that. Brandon, how about yourself?
I gotta go the absolute opposite. I'm going super villain. I'm talking just the absolute evil genius in the movie, like the what was it, For Your Eyes Only back in the day. It had the one scene of the bad guy in the wheelchair at the beginning. I want the whole movie about me though. Like, I don't care how bad of the gruesome death that Bond has to give me at the end, but I'm talking, I want to be just a mastermind evil guy.
Cool. One devil's advocate, like whatever. I'm blowing everything up. Not literally though. No, that was awesome. Thank you guys for all of your responses. Me, real quick, I just want to have telekinesis, and if you don't know what that is, that's just the ability to move things with your mind. Because then I wouldn't have to pay for a caregiver. Like I'd be straight, like squared away. Like somebody's like, "Oh, how do you get back to bed?" I'm just like, "Don't worry about it. How do you get back to bed?" Like, well, I put myself back. Oh yeah, I do the same thing. Good day, cheerio, and then they keep it moving. So that's what I always say to my wife. I'm just like, if I could have one superpower, that's what it would be. That way, everybody else get to relax and what have you. But listen, this has just been such a fantastic discussion. When we see ourselves in other people's light and mirror and whatnot, it really shares a message of empathy and that we are just all working together. You're not any different from me. And actually, you know what? You can become me as well. So let's have a heart for each other's plights. We don't necessarily have to admire everyone's situation or be inspired by everyone's situation. And one thing that, when I was thinking about just like the history of like entertainment, as I was mentioning earlier, like, freak shows and what have you. And some people like Joseph Carey Merrick, popularly known as the Elephant Man, he embraced it essentially. And he asked and requested to become part of a sideshow and, to help fund, different things that he needed in life. And sometimes it's okay to be the sideshow or the one that everyone's being looked at, because if we're entertaining, guess what? That's no different than if you stand up and do comedy or what have you. But it's not about laughing at us, but it's more about laughing with us. And so, guys, again, thank you, Jay, for just being able to join us. Thank you, everybody, for being a part of tonight's discussion. And just please be on the lookout for our next discussion topic, next month, and sign up for the More Than Walking newsletter at morethanwalking.com to learn about the topic we're going to be covering next. And until the next time, remain encouraged, stay hopeful, and above all else, be aware, everyone. Have a great night.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
everyone,
you.
for showing up. Thank you.
And keep a lookout for the movie script that stars all of us in our key roles. And Brandon, I'm taking you down.
Yes, let's go. Let's go.
Awesome.
Let's do it.